warm welcome to Bharata First. You're watching the Discourse with me, Pereira. Since you're here, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the content so that more people get to know about Bharata First. That's it, nothing more. Just share the word and ensure that more people get to know about us. I ask you of just that. All right. A lot of talk before the 18th of September about what's going to happen during the 5-day special parliament session that was called for by the government. Everyone was curious before the 18th of September as to what exactly will happen. Not much has happened transactionally over the 5-day parliament period, but there was one piece of legislation, landmark legislation, that made it through both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, and it is almost 3 decades in the making. First introduced in 1996. Much talk after that about whether or not we should have reservation of women in the Lok Sabha as well as the state assemblies, and finally we have that bill passing through both the houses of parliament, and we have the women's reservation bill in place right now. Many of you have asked for a discussion around that as well, and here it is. We are talking about the women's reservation bill, and what are the pros, what are the cons, what does it mean for women of this country, what does it mean for political parties, and what does it mean for our democracy as a whole. That's what we're going to discuss in this edition of the Discourse. And joining me on the program today are Mr. Bimbadhar Pradhan, former Secretary, Government of India, and Vineeta Hariharan, public policy expert. Thank you to my guests for joining me on this edition of the Discourse. Vineeta Hariharan, let me start the program with you first. It's been termed as iconic, has been termed as something that has been in the making for a few years now, and finally we have it before us. Your first reactions to the Women's Reservation Bill being passed by Parliament?
No, absolutely excited and thrilled to have this bill in place after 30 long years of waiting in Indian electoral history. I think it's truly iconic and truly historic, a moment for us to all cherish, and it'll go into the history of electoral India, I think, forever. And getting a full majority in both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, that just shows that across the political spectrum, whatever their misgivings may be, they actually want and welcome this bill. And so, as we all know, the struggle that we've had to pass this bill ever since the first report was presented by Nurul Hassan in 1975. And then there was a report again in, I think, 1980. And then the successive governments could not somehow place it because various other priorities. And again, in 2010, it lapsed in the Lok Sabha. So finally, we have this now. And so I think it's going to become a really, really game changer for women representation in electoral politics, especially since women are very, very empowered today. It's not like the earlier days when, there was criticism that this could be, again, a backdoor kind of representation, and men would use this as a front face to have their voices heard in electoral, voices, but that's not the case today. So I think this government has been doing a lot of work since the last 10 years in empowering women in various aspects, starting with their safety, then their nutrition through the PM Poshan, and then their, health through various schemes like the Matritva Yojana Abhiyan and all of that, and improving the, maternity, mortality rate by declining the maternity mortality rate. And we had a good, the outcome of the sex ratio also going up to 1020. So many such initiatives and outcomes we achieved in the for women empowerment. And then, of course, all the other, Jan Dhan Yojanas and the Mudra loans, which most of it are benefiting women. And then the Swachh Bharat mission, of course, with Izzat Ghars being, access to sanitation is a hugely important aspect in improving the health and hygiene of our rural women. So I think all of this has empowered women a lot, not only not only in the basic amenities, socially also we had the abolition of the triple talaq, so empowering Muslim women greatly, and then economic empowerment also with the Startup India, Mudra loans, all of that. So now I think women are much more equipped to face electoral politics, and they were a couple of years back, but now even more so. So therefore, this bill has come at the very right time, and for us to plunge into politics, and it'll actually bring in many, many more women voices to the forefront.
Looking forward to that, because almost 50% of the population is women at the end of the day. So we need equal representation as well, because the issues, let's not forget, some issues pertaining to women, only women can understand and take them forward as well. And women are more comfortable bringing up these issues with women as well. So we can see better representation of the people on the ground too to be brought up and taken forward. All right. Mr. Pradhan, pros and cons really as far as this bill is concerned, many years in the making, finally we have it in front of us. How would you look at it?
I think, sir, to be very fair, see, if you take the little bit of timeline, 1996, that is 108th Amendment Bill. And now this is 128th, and we are in 2023. So what ma'am was saying, I think, if you take a little shorter timeline, so the women of this country had to wait for 27 years. And if you take the 2023 bill and the 2008 bill, roughly it is an abridged version. Before that, I will give you some statistics. If you take the global average, the participation of women in the political process, roughly 26.5%. And if you take a microscopic, say, Asian regional kind of representation, it is around 21%. And if you take our Lok Sabha, roughly 82 women MPs are there. Whether you say total 539 or 550, it is approximately 15%.
Yeah.
And if you take the Rajya Sabha, it is out of, say 250, roughly 31 are the women MPs. And since independence, we have one woman prime minister and two honorable presidents, women presidents since independence. And if you take, the chief ministers, roughly we have, if I am correct, 15 chief ministers are women since independence. If you go into the grassroots level, that is the third tier of our, the political process, in most states, like say Bihar, we have 50% reservation. But if you take the 1993 onwards, approximately 44% of the women are participating at the local level. That itself is a huge achievement. And no doubt, this very bill is progressive and it will lay the foundation for a brighter future. If India is going to aspire to be the third largest economy, whatever may be the year by 2030, then definitely this bill is a history. And the another side of this story, if you take the World Economic Forum, the gender parity report, India ranks poorly 140 or 141 out of 185 countries. So if you take the gender parity in the political process, India has not fared well. Though our women have done better at the local level, at the grassroots level in the PRI institutions, but if you take the Lok Sabha or even the legislative assemblies, it has not done better. And if you take, roughly the 950 million registered voters, and 50% are the women registered voters. And in the timeline, the participation of women contesting the election, it has increased roughly by 7-fold. So with this backdrop, definitely this bill is the beginning. But if I have to sound at the, this point, we have miles to go to achieve political parity. So far, our 50% of our citizens are concerned. So we have a long way to go.
Very rightly said. Miles to go as far as political parity is concerned. This is something that we need to achieve and we hope to achieve sometime in the near future. Coming back to you, Vineeta Hariharan, as far as women are concerned, what does this really mean as far as women of this country are concerned? Not just, let's look at it from both aspects, not just women who aspire to play a bigger role as leaders and politicians, but also the common woman at the end of the day who would like to look up to her a member of parliament being a woman as well. So what does this mean, and what does this also mean? I mean, I like this point that Mr. Pradhan raised about miles to go for political parity. As far as that is concerned, how big a step is this?
No, I think definitely policy interventions and pushes definitely work well in empowering women from bottoms up as well. So, but it needs both a pull and a push, I would say, because we also need a lot of societal corrections even today, because politics as such is looked upon as a very very unruly and a very very turbulent kind of a career. So especially so for women, so women entering politics is not such an easy game for a woman. And but then those women who actually opt to choose politics are extremely courageous, I would say, and going against the tide, because there are a lot of misnomers about politics and about the safety of women in politics. I think those kind of things have to really be improved in terms of making women feel safe in the political space. I think that is something that we need to work upon. And also about the general perception about politics as a career for an educated professional. So because I've also taken now steps into the political world, and there are a lot of voices coming against that and saying that it's not a space for somebody as educated as you, somebody who's done so much of education and entering the political space. Professionals do not have a space in politics. That's again a misnomer. That's going beyond gender though. But especially women professionals, I think that is again the space that needs to be inculcated in the political world. So I think these are two very soft interventions that are required, but they are nevertheless very, very relevant. For women to actually climb up in the political ladder. But today there is a lot of recognition, there's a lot of space for women also on the other side of the coin, because of the kind of affirmative action that the governments take and that you're supposed to take. At least because of that, there is a lot of attention being given to women, and there's a lot of push being given to women. But it's not enough, I would say. There needs to be much more empowerment and push given to women, because even today in the core political arena, women, like Sir was just mentioning, the kind of participation rate, and it's just about 15% average across assemblies and parliament. So I think that needs a lot of improvement, not just by policy intervention, not just by bringing in an act, but I think it requires social economic empowerment and education also, right from the school level up to the primary, secondary, and the tertiary levels. I think political participation has to be encouraged as an essential feature of your curriculum. It need not be looked upon as something that, oh God, she's in politics, and even in the college level, they fear violence in politics. So I think that's again another area which needs to be looked upon. And I think it's also important now to look at how we can actually train people to become politicians, and not just anybody and everybody entering the political space. It should not be the last resort of anybody in anyone's career space. It has to be something that has to be a choice, a concerted choice. And there are various fields today like public policy, etc., which actually train people to eventually enter the political arena, because after all, it is the political space that actually determines a lot of the governance in the country. It's the minister or it's the prime minister who actually makes policies and programs, and they all come through an electoral process. So I think this whole perception about politics also needs a change, and there needs to be a general safety net for women, I would say, in the political space, and also a kind of a hand holding, throughout they're not just for reservations and not just for them to enter the political arena, but also for them to grow in the space, So I think that is something that needs some working in India. And I think internationally, globally as well. Yesterday, there was a TV debate, and so they were saying that globally as well, this kind of a bill is very rare, and we are one of the first few countries to actually bring this in place. But policies definitely make an impact, and people are forced to act as per the bill and the law. But at the same time, there also needs to be socio-economic and educational push from below.
Absolutely. Even globally, like you mentioned, if you look at politics is seen as a male bastion, barring a few countries, maybe in the Scandinavian region, where we've seen a large participation of women. But on the whole, it is really a male bastion, and that's how it's looked at. So this bill comes as a landmark really for other countries to follow as well in the near future. All right, Mr. Pradhan, good to see you back here after a brief tussle with the electricity, I'm sure. But yeah, as far as
correct, sir. And sir, this is Gurugram. So now I am connected through my mobile, sir.
absolutely. So, Mr. Pradhan, as far as miles to go with regards to political parity, this is something that you mentioned in your opening remark. What more needs to be done?
Sir, now if I have to put the major bottlenecks or the major barriers to women entering politics or being in leadership positions, I will precisely say two factors. A, they may not have adequate resources to contest an election, whether it is a parliamentary election or a state election. Two, you must have a political party to back these women candidates, both at the parliament election level, also at the state assembly election level. You may contest as an independent candidate, no matter however resourceful you may be, it is difficult to win an election both at the Lok Sabha level and also at the state assembly level. So there must be a political party backing you. Take, for example, the Biju Janata Dal. I am little specific. And take the example of the Trinamool Congress. Roughly, as on date, in the parliament, Trinamool Congress has got 37% representation. Similarly, whether you have a bill or not, but if the political party has the willingness and the intent, they can walk the talk. Now, we are also, raising this issue, the Article 330 within the bill. You have to wait for the census to be completed, and you have to wait for the delimitation exercise to be completed. And therefore, some people are saying it may be feasible or the implementation may be possible, say in 2030s or after 2029. Therefore, I think, again, I will also give, the word Samika Ravi, who is a member of the PM's Economic Advisory Council, to her. And it is a study by a Delhi-based think tank. To them, that the women vote for change, while the men vote for status quo. It is their quote. That therefore, I will just say quote and unquote, women vote for change, and while men vote for status quo. And at the local level, what I will repeat it, from 1993 onwards, it has ensured remarkable political empowerment for women at the grassroots level. Therefore, whether you wait up to 2029 election or you can go ahead in 2024 general election, it is the political party who must give at least 30 to 40% tickets to the women candidates. And whatever happens, say after delimitation, and again you have to wait for that sunset clause for 15 years. And there will be also rotational basis. So I am not going into those details, but if we are talking about political empowerment, or we are talking about women-led development, and this is a good beginning. At least after, say, 2010, now it has become a reality. This is a good beginning, and I am hopeful this is going to set the tone for women empowerment, for women-led development, and women taking leading role at the decision-making level, which will empower them. What ma'am was saying, at the social level, at the educational level, there has been a lot of schemes, gender budgeting, gender inclusion, gender justice, triple talaq. We can cite so many examples, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, and Mudra scheme. That is okay at the developmental level. But at the political participation process, whether it is Lok Sabha, but we must give tickets in adequate numbers, we must see that our women MPs are there adequately, the way I think, some political parties have done it in this 17th Lok Sabha. And I will cite just, two more. What about Rajya Sabha? What about legislative councils? I think that is one gray area. We must also see that in Rajya Sabha and in legislative councils, there is also adequate women participation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Women participation across the board, not just in the Lok Sabha, but also in the Rajya Sabha and councils as well, state councils. That's very important, and we'll see how that is taken forward. All right. Time to get closing comments now from both my panelists with the best way forward and what next, starting first with you, Vineeta.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is a very welcome step, as Pradhanji has also stated. And I think this will also set the sentiment going forward, taking on from what Sir just mentioned about the, increased participation, not just by an act, but even otherwise. So I think this might set a sentiment that you need to have more women candidates beyond reservation. They can still choose women candidates as candidates for certain constituencies beyond what the reservation mandates us to do. So perhaps this bill may, give that kind of sentiment to the people who decide who should stand for which constituency. And I think it's a very, very welcome step. Much awaited 30 years of waiting in the queue. We have finally managed to cross a huge, milestone. So I think let's welcome it with open arms. Apart from all of the other initiatives the government has done, I think we are really moving forward. We've, lost a lot of time in the past, but I think now we're going forward in the right direction in all aspects of women empowerment. And electoral empowerment was something that was really required as a 360-degree completion of the cycle of women empowerment.
So that cycle is now complete. We'll see how exactly it translates on the ground and how it changes the lives of women, because that's the most important aspect at the end of the day. We need to see any kind of change, bring about change in the lives of people on the ground, because that's what's most important. All right, Mr. Pradhan, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Yeah, now I think, I will be again just 3-4 lines. See, the Article 334 of the bill, it says that the reservation will be effective only after delimitation process is completed. This is number one. However, reservation of 33% seats for women in Lok Sabha and in state legislative assemblies will definitely, again I will repeat, it will definitely give new energy to women-led development and will be a guarantee for our bright future. Definitely, it will be a guarantee for our bright future. There is no doubt about it. I am quite optimistic. However, it is important the timeline for implementation for this historic bill. And again, I will repeat, reservation of women in Rajya Sabha and in Legislative Council must be also loud and clear by the political parties. Last, women of our country have been waiting from 1996 onwards to see this, the very idea to be enacted into an act and into law. And so far as this gender parity or gender equality or equity is concerned, the political parties, again I will repeat, must walk the talk from next election onwards, whether it is at a state level, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, or even at the national level, the next 18th general election, the way some political parties have given adequate representation, the coming election, people must walk the talk. We should not wait up to 2029 or 2030. If the major national political parties give tickets to the women contesting candidates, there will be definitely more than 15% participation what we have in the 17th Lok Sabha. Therefore, the political parties must give tickets in adequate numbers to the women candidates. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I hope that happens sooner rather than later. And we see this bill actually taking shape and coming into, into the limelight, not just limelight, but coming into use as Mr. Pradhan has just suggested, hopefully from 2024, and political parties as well walk the talk at the end of the day. All right. With that, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much to both my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Much appreciate your time. Thank you. So, what's coming out of this discussion is that the Women's Reservation Bill is definitely a step in the right direction and makes a huge surge and a jump as far as empowerment of women in our country are concerned. Over the last decade or so, we've seen women, being empowered through various schemes of the government of India, be it the Matrutva Yojana, be it so many other schemes that the government has brought in really to empower women of this country. Now, this comes as another step because it is not being done at a social or an economic level, but it is being done at the political level, where we need to see representation of women as well. Women represent about 50% of our population, but the representation of women in politics, as far as the Parliament of India is concerned, is less than 15%. And that needs to change. And hopefully, this bill will change all of that. We're going to see more women in leadership roles. We're going to see more women really take on the mantle and work towards women empowerment as well. Women empowerment has happened, like I mentioned, but women-led empowerment is another thing, and that is what we need to focus on, and that is what hopefully this bill will bring about as well. But as far as political parity is concerned between men and women, there is still miles to go and a long way to go as far as that is concerned. And we hope an atmosphere is created, an environment is created for women to dwell and for women to thrive within the political circles as well. We need to firstly start making women feel much more safer, feel like this is not just a male bastion, but there is place and scope for women too within the framework of politics as well. That is what is important. And more importantly, political parties need to walk the talk and not just do lip service, but actually ensure that women coming to political roles and leadership roles within political parties as well. Because right now, the bill talks about the Lok Sabha and the state assemblies. What about the legislative councils? What about the Rajya Sabha? What about leadership roles within political parties itself? The onus for that is going to be on the political parties. And when will this bill actually kick off and come into effect? Will it be in 2024? Will it be later? That is something that is left up to the political parties. Let's hope that we see, or that this bill sees action in 2024 itself. And that is what we need to see going forward. All right. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of the Discourse. But before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon and share the content as well, so that more people get to know about Bharata first. And we have a contribution link in the description below. A small contribution that you make goes a long way in us bringing you this content. So please contribute as much as you can. See you again next time. With that, it's a wrap. Until next time, this is Pereira signing off.